Everybody good to go? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Midland's council meeting for Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. We had an in-camera session from 5:30 until 6. It is now 6:01, and I'll call this regular portion of the meeting to order and start with my traditional land acknowledgement. The town of Midland recognizes located on land which is traditional and treaty territory of the Anishinaabe people, now known as the Chippewa Tri-Council, comprised of Beausoleil First Nation, Arama First Nation, and Georgina Island First Nation. This territory is within Pre-Confederation Treaty 5 and Treaty 16 and included within the Williams Treaties of 1923. The town of Midland recognizes it's located on land which is traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and historic homeland to the Métis, and that our town is home to a large and diverse community of Indigenous people. I'd like to also deliver the following safety message. Should the fire alarm activate, please exit the room in an orderly fashion and proceed to the evacuation assembly area, which is located in the upper parking lot off 3rd Street. You may exit through the main entrance, those double glass doors, make an immediate left and proceed out the front doors or through the secondary exit back here. Go up the stairs, check the door for heat before opening, and if it's safe, exit onto the 2nd floor, turn right and proceed out the door in front of you, or just follow us. Washrooms are located on the 2nd floor. An elevator is located just outside the main entrance. Midland has a respectful workplace policy. Anyone exhibiting violent or harassing behavior will be asked to leave. Members of the audience are to maintain order and quiet and are not to address council except with permission of the chair. All cell phones, pagers, and other electronic devices, and this part always reminds me too, which emit a sound are to be turned off or set to non-audible. No person shall display signs or placards, applaud participants, or debate or engage in conversations, electronic or otherwise, or behave in a way that may disrupt the proceedings of council. For anyone requiring a hearing assist device, please advise the clerk and she'll arrange with our IT staff to provide you with said device. Council meetings are recorded via Zoom and are posted to the town's YouTube website. The meetings are, YouTube channel technically. The meetings are also broadcast on Rogers TV Midland Channel 53 when possible. Individual recording, broadcasting, or streaming of the meetings by the public or any member is not permitted without express consent of the clerk and all those present. With that, I'd like to kick us off with a moment of silent reflection, and we'll get into the meat of the meeting. Thank you. So council, section 7 of the agenda, declarations of conflict of interest. Any councillor know or detect a conflict of interest in themselves or anything related on the agenda tonight? Nope, seeing none. If that should change at any point, just throw your hand up, let me know, and make the requisite declaration. I have a motion moved by Councillor Patel, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that further to the verbal report of the Deputy Clerk, confidential criteria-based matrix and related discussions at the closed meeting session of Council held a few minutes ago, February 5th, 2025. Hearing confirms that Ms. Emmy Lynn Sharp be appointed to the Midland Active Transportation Advisory Committee as the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit representative for a term consistent with the term of council. Thank you for your application and congratulations, Ms. Sharp. And we look forward to your contributions on that very, very important committee. Council, we discussed this in camera. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Next, I have a motion here moved by Councillor Major, seconded by Councillor East, that the contents of the regular council with closed session agenda for February 5th, 2025 be approved as amended. Those amendments being the removal of item 15.1, deputations/petitions, the SSEA, overview of drinking water source protection program at the request of the SSEA, which is the Severn Sound Environmental Association. We'll get to hear from them at a subsequent meeting. And addition to item 15.2, deputation petitions, MHBC, Delbrook, MZO request for the lands located at 565 Bomb Beach Road, January 29th, 2025, letter of intent between Habitat for Humanity and Delbrook Group. That was added after the fact, so we're just making this notification. And you'll see that online. Council, any comments or questions about the agenda? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Next, I've got one moved by Councillor Patel, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the items and related recommendations contained within the February 5th, 2025 consent agenda as consent items having been considered by council be adopted with the exception of item 10.4.4, which is CSR 2025-19 update to parking bylaw, which will be considered under section 17, reports and other items withdrawn from the consent agenda for council's consideration, including presentations by consultants regarding a report under consideration. Council, there's a few items that obviously haven't been pulled And this is opportunity to ask questions or make any comments on the items that will otherwise be passed under one motion that will follow shortly. Who wants to kick things off? Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Mayor Gordon. A question about on 10.4.2 about the farmers market. Just wondering about the why this wouldn't be on our fee schedule. That's going to be out. I think next council meeting we'll be discussing it. The reason being is, if I'm doing the math correctly, at $750 is their annual fee. It's approximately 22 weeks, which is about $34 a week. And if we break that down to 20 vendors, that's basically about $2 a vendor that we're charging. So if that is correct, and I'm not sure what amount of staff time is involved in the farmers market, and I'm wondering if this could be discussed at the fee schedule versus have it on this part of the agenda.
Who wants this one? Mr. Farquharson?
Sorry, I didn't pull it because I was.
Through your worship, to Councillor Mayor, are you asking is this charge on the user fees bylaw? Clarification.
Usually it's in the user fee schedule, is it not? But this would come up on the user fee schedule, and we're discussing the user fee schedule at next council meeting. I'm just wondering why it's here and prior to us discussing the fees schedule.
So through your worship, the user fees and bylaws does have the farmers market annual license in there. That's $715. So it is identified within that bylaw.
Thank you. So I'm just curious to see, as the I just find it for if I did when I explain my math, it was about $2 a vendor. I just find that very very low if you dissect it. So is there how much staff time is involved in with the farmers market?
Through your worship to Councillor Meredith, we can look into that. I can talk to Ms. Mealing about that, see how much staff time does go into it. And I can report back to council when we do discuss the fees and charges bylaw to see if that fee does need to be revised.
Okay, and so if we pass it tonight, then we would actually probably look at this probably in the following year. Is that correct? Or is this contract? Is this on the agenda tonight because there's a contract that needs to be signed with the farmers market, or can we push it to the fees and bylaw portion on the 26th?
I believe Ms. Mealing's online. I'm just going back and forth with Karen right now. So let me see if she's available.
Thanks. I think what you're trying to get at, I just want to be clear here, is we're going to presumably pass this fee as it stands now. We are then going to very likely edit the fees and charges bylaw at a subsequent meeting. And will that allow us to then change this number that we're going to approve tonight? So is this a variable, or is it going to lock us in as a fixed rate because we're approving it tonight?
Through your worship to council. So the updated agreement doesn't start till May. So it can be reviewed when we do look at the fees and charges bylaw. So we can review it when it does come forward. And if that fee does need to be adjusted, then we can do it at that time.
That'd be great. And I apologize for not pulling it. And
that's okay.
For making you guys aware. Thank you. All right.
No, that was totally appropriate because you're asking questions for clarification. We're not giving any direction, so it's all good. Yeah. Anybody else? Alrighty. So the question stands with our current, the question on the floor, do I need to read it again? Or if no one's lost track, we know where we're at. We're approving the consent agenda. Very good. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, moved by Counselor Meredith, seconded by Counselor East, that council resolve into committee of the whole. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Committee of the whole, turning it over to the deputy mayor.
Okay, if you're following along, we're at number 12, public meetings or hearings. We have none. Presentations, we have none. Integrity Commissioner recommendation reports, we have none. Deputations and petitions, 15.1 is now deferred. That's the SSEA. It's deferred to a future meeting. And so moving forward to 15.2, Mr. Jamie Robinson, partner MHBC, is here to present to council with respect to the MZO request pertaining to the lands located at 565 Bomb Beach Road. Mr. Jamie Robinson. Welcome. You have 10 minutes.
10 minutes. I'll try not to take 10 minutes in the interest of time, but thank you, your worship and members of council and staff and members of the public. Again, my name is Jamie Robinson. I'm a partner with MHBC Planning and here representing Delbrook this evening. What I'm here today to talk to you about is 565 Bomb Beach Road. It's a property that we provided historic correspondence to council surrounding this property, specifically as it relates to this growth management study called OPA 7 that the county of Simcoe was undertaking. And that exercise was, that document's sitting with the province right now, but it was a request to have these lands considered as part of a boundary, part of the serviced area for the town of Midland and brought into the serviced area through that OPA 7 request. So back at that time, council did pass a resolution that supported the lands that are subject to this property being brought into that urban service boundary. Effectively, if you can just go to the next slide. So what our request today before you is to request that a report be brought back to staff in the future that considers these lands and considers a request for a minister's zoning order, which is an MZO. And I'm going to provide some details on why we're making that specific request and why this is a unique situation and it deserves that sort of consideration for you. I'm not asking you to make that decision tonight. I think you need to get some feedback from your staff on that. If you wanted to make that decision tonight, that would be great, but I'm not asking you to do that. I'm simply asking for you to refer it back to staff to have a report brought forward on the merits of that request, some of which I'll provide to you tonight. So if you, this property, what's being proposed is about 450 units on it. If you could just go to the next slide, please. And the subject lands are on Bomb Beach Road. What Delbrook would like to do is construct a residential community here that consists of a mix of built forms. So there's proposed to be an apartment, townhouses, some semi-detached, and then also some single attached associated with it, but ultimately 455 units. Again, the reason why I'm here is we had hoped by this time OPA 7 would be approved by the province, but that's basically been sitting at the province for quite some time now, and there's no timeline for that to occur. And again, what this council had done previously was recommend these lands be brought into the serviced area as part of OPA 7. So the council has already provided that sort of direction through OPA 7. Because there's no timeline to do that, we're suggesting that an MZO is the best process to, in a timely manner, bring these lands into the serviced area. In accordance with the provincial policy statement and the planning documents, the time to do those things is typically through a comprehensive review or a comprehensive study, which OPA 7 was, but it's not as appropriate to do it as a site-specific situation unless there's a unique circumstance. We think that this site has those unique circumstances, and specifically the fact that council's already resolved that this is an appropriate location to see future development. Next slide, please. So just from a geographic perspective, the subject lands are on the left side of this image. They're outlined in red, and they're immediately adjacent to the existing built boundary. We have had discussions with the engineering staff. Servicing is available at the doorstep of this site, and it's one of the more easily serviced areas in the municipality. We know your engineering staff has focused providing servicing and opportunities for servicing with lands that can be most easily serviced, and that's why, so they haven't spent additional money on pumping stations that would generate small amounts of development land, for example, where these lands are easily piped and easily serviced, and it's a very cost effective for the town to service and make efficient use of that existing infrastructure you have. So it's the next sort of step anyways, and can be easily serviced. Next slide, please. So just in terms of justification, there has been an EIS, so environmental impact study completed. There's been an archaeological study completed. Servicing capacity studies have been completed. Servicing is available next to the site. Traffic study is in progress, and the detailed functional servicing report is in progress. So all the supporting studies that would be done to facilitate a development of this scale have either been completed or are in process. So from a prematurity perspective, we think that box has been checked, that this wouldn't be premature because of that it's an appropriate location for growth, and the supporting technical studies are being completed and underway. The owner's also been in discussion with Habitat for Humanity about the prospect of dedicating lands for 4 semi-detached units as well as 10 apartment units. And that's included, I believe, in the agenda package as well. Just go on to the next slide, please. So this is the summary. So just in summary, Delbrook is ready to build. They're ready to build homes and bring homes to Midland. I think that's a goal, my understanding of this council, but also of the province. The MZO would help achieve that in a timely manner. And the typical reason for undergoing an MZO versus the standard planning process is you need a willing partner, and there needs to be a reason why you can't go through the standard process. And the reason why the standard process isn't appropriate here is because, as I mentioned, lands that are brought into an urban service area are typically only done at the time of municipal comprehensive review, and that's not being undertaken right now, and there's no timeline to do that. And we have no timeline on OPA 7. So that's the unique circumstance that would dictate why this is appropriate for this instance. So with that, your worship and council, if there's any questions, I can do my best to try to answer those, but the real request here is to refer this back to staff for a staff report for consideration at a future meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Do we have any questions or comments from council? Councillor East.
Thank you, through your deputy mayor. I haven't actually met Delbrook. Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to personally thank you for giving us the ability to help those in need.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you. I think this is a responsible growth area. Actually, like that, we see a lot of development projects come by, and this one seems like the most reasonable I've seen. Across the street, there's already units that are developed, and I think that the only concern I have is the school district. I don't know if you have done any research about that, but the school district it would be in, the schools are pretty overcrowded for that, where they would be directed into that school. So that's my only question.
So through your worship, I'm not sure from a public school or elementary school perspective exactly whether it's Mundy's Bay or what school it is, but from a secondary, it would be obviously Georgian Bay Secondary School. And then Catholic school would be St. Teresa's. But as far as through the subdivision process, the school boards are circulated. They do provide comments and a typical draft plan condition. So this, if an MZO were granted, there would still be a requirement to go through the draft plan of subdivision process, and a standard condition usually comes from both the Catholic separate school board and the public school board that there needs to be available capacity for those students, or they may be shipped to other locations. But the idea would be that in any circumstance where growth is proposed, there's also often school enlargements that need to need to occur, so. But it's part of the planning process, I guess, is what the answer really is.
Thank you. Yeah, wasn't sure if you'd talked to them yet, so good to know. And I'll echo Mr. East's comments that it's nice to see affordable homes coming and to help those in need. So the Habitat for Humanity piece is obviously very appealing as well.
Mayor Gordon. Oh, sorry. Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost, through you to Mr. Robinson. You mentioned that an MZO negates a comprehensive review. So what if you weren't going through an MZO, can you explain to me a little bit about this? What would we typically would see in a comprehensive review of this nature?
Sure, through your worship to the counselor. Effectively, to put it in simple terms, when prior to updating an official plan or as part of an official plan amendment, there's an exercise where municipalities do a supply and demand analysis, and that's the comprehensive review is a fancy word for supply and demand analysis. So the first is how much population do you have in coming to your community, how much employment, and then how much land do you need to support that, whether you're going to go up and increase density like what Aurelia is considering now, or are we going to do some density increase and have to expand our urban footprint as well. So usually that's done at the time of an OP review specifically. And then that's what OPA 7 was effectively when this council in August of 2023, they wrote a letter to the minister saying that the council supported these lands being brought into the urban service area. So that exercise was a part of a comprehensive review, and that precipitated because the province said, hey, municipalities, are there people out there that want additional lands for growth to be allocated? If there are, put your hands up. So effectively Midland did that through this letter at this instance. And then, but that whole process has been kind of put on hold and we have no idea when it's going to kickstart. So outside of that and outside of an OP review, which is sometime in the future, this MZO would provide the opportunity to bring these lands into the settlement area. It's another avenue that's available through the Planning Act.
Great, thank you.
Mayor Gordon.
Thanks. Great to see this application. I've kind of, over time, this term, we've been watching this evolve, and we know that that corridor is going to do big things for Midland. All the lands in behind, the old mill, there's everything back there is in what's the castle and everything. There's all kinds of stuff going to be happening back there, but nobody's really ready. And so it's great to see an application that's ready to go, fully serviceable. And the MZO, has taken a beating with I'll say the misuse of it by some municipalities in the past as a way just to sidestep or fast track or, block out community consultation. We saw some of that use in the dreaded Greenbelt scandal. And so those three letters have taken a bad rap in municipalities where they were abused. And so, the people I've talked to about this, because I've tried to pre-publish it so people would know that this request was coming. That was their question, okay, so if this is the fastest, best way to get housing built, what's to say that the developer takes this newly, approved subdivision, land banks it and markets it and never puts a shovel in the ground? And we've seen, even in places like Oro, where the province has reversed the MZO, because the developer just, for a variety of reasons, never moved ahead on it wasn't residential in this case. So I've been telling people that in a relationship that this municipality has built or is building with this developer in question, Delbrook, and the housing that they're planning on building imminently, this isn't a developer that is going to deceive us and, get us to jump through all these hoops and then just park the application and never put a shovel in the ground and proceed. However, my assurance is based on my belief and my meetings with the developer over time, maybe aren't as compelling as they're hearing it right from, Medi's mouth in this case, that, we look at the development that it's happening in Tay, where the signs are up and, they're starting to market the homes they're building there. We have an open application for the Young Street property that we still need to get a staff report back with recommendation. And now this MZO request. there's like almost 1,000 new homes in Midland that are being contemplated here. And there's other property that we haven't seen development requests for that I suspect are coming too that are owned by this developer. So where my question is in this is to first the statement to satisfy those that are watching that, you know, we're not indiscriminately waving around the MZO wand, nor can we right now because there's no government really to approve this. We need, there won't be, even if we were to get this report back and, or if we were to approve it tonight, there's nobody that could sign off on this right now. So we're in a bit of a delay with the election. We'll see what the government forms. And if the new government still has an appetite to entertain MZOs as a rapid way to get housing built, my question is to hear from Mehdi himself that this is an application that, like his other one, we can't really speak to that, I guess, yet, but if it's approved, from our perspective, and if the province approves it, you know, when are the shovels getting in the ground? When can we expect people to move into these, this amazing neighborhood you're proposing, including the Habitat for Humanity builds? Part two of my question is, are you building the Habitat houses as well, or are you just giving them the lots and then they're going to build them? You know, because it would be nice to have the community all look the same, so nobody feels like, oh, those guys are in the Habitat homes, and you know everyone else is living in a beautiful Delbrook home. So there's sort of two parts there, but they're the questions that I got the most from after I made my social media post and my website post about this application tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Your Worship, Mayor Gordon, thank you for your good questions, I would call it. From Delbrook perspective, just to give you assurance to the council and to the staff that what we have been doing, I can bring you back a bit of brief history here that Delbrook has been investing in this area starting from 2017. And this is when I personally met with planner Mr. West Crown. Back then he was the planner here. And we started discussing the Little Lake project that we had at that time. Then we started actively developing the Little Lake project. And at the same time, we started purchasing the property in Tay, the former Port McNichol School. And then we got to know this 50-acre piece of land that when we saw it from Delbrook perspective, this is a perfect site to have a beautiful subdivision, to create different kind of housing, to have affordable housing, rental apartments, ranging from semi-detached townhouses and single detached units. Now, as you mentioned, we got about almost about 1,000 lots here that we are developing in this area. There is obviously there's a market absorption that we have to calculate and understand and, you know, do it in our marketing analysis. The promise that we gave to Tay back when we purchased the Port McNichol, and when we bid on that project, there were 10 other bidders because we had to go through and buy this project from the Simcoe school board. So back then we promised the Tay Township that we are here to develop this, and this is what we are proposing. We're going to have affordable rental units here, which we are going to build in the school building. Back then, we did the same process that we are proposing for this 50 acres on Balm Beach. We went through the MZO, or I think the correct name is CHIA order now, right? CHIA order, right? To bring it to the approval stage and work on it. There were so many rumors why these guys are not breaking the ground, because the people, the public, I understand after talking to people, they don't quite understand that MZO just giving you the okay on the zoning and the official plan. So for the next stages, you got to still go and get your draft plan approval. You still have to go and get your site plan approval. You still have to get your building permit. So it's a lengthy process to bring those houses to market. And what has been facing the past few years in the economy and the slowdowns and the increases in interest rates, so all the builders kind of put a pause on the opening of the new sites. But what we have done is we said no, because we are in this area, we want to push it forward. We have to go to the next stage. What we are counting is we want to start with the Port McNichol School, which is, we are close to get our draft plan approval. We are hoping to start a sales program in spring of this year. And hopefully, depending on the sales, how it goes, we are planning to start houses there right away. Next plan is we got the Little Lake in Midland, and we got the 50-acre on Balm Beach. The 50 acre in partnership with Habitat for Humanity, and I'm gonna get to your question whether we're gonna handle the construction, your worship. And again, for this, you have to know the story before on the 50 acre. We purchased this piece of property in 2021, October, November 2021. And right away, we were very active. We are not just a type of developer, just buy and do the land banking, just sit on it. Back then, the town, they were having their consultant WSP to do the study and to extend the services all the way to the front of our property in 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2, which phase 1 is already completed now. So we got engaged. At the same time that we purchased these properties, we started talking to your engineering department and WSP and our engineers. We back then managed to do the capacity calculation for up to, if I'm not mistaken, up to 700 units for this piece of property. So we had to upsize the pie. And from 2021 up to now, we have been spending money on this project, even though we were waiting for OP7 to come to the picture. For example, as Jamie mentioned, we have done the EIS, report is almost finalized. Archaeological report is finalized. We are in process of engaging one of the TATAM, as you probably know them, the engineering consultants who work on our site servicing and the stormwater management. So actively, we're working on this, and this is like this October comes, it's going to be 4 years that we are putting money into this, right? And from the developer perspective, I cannot promise here tonight that, okay, I'm going to build this and bring the shovel in the ground the next day I got the building permit. But what I promise you, sorry. It's okay. Yeah. But what I can assure you, I think we have to see what we have done so far. We have spent 4, 5 years actively working and spending money and developing this. And I've been mentioning to Mayor Bill Gordon, we try to take a low risk in our development portfolio. We are not like a developers that they have purchase a skyline properties in Port McNichol and resell it, over and over time. We are here, we are established, we are doing the best. We want to help the community. That's one of the biggest reasons that the Habitat for Humanity, the discussions of providing them with the 4 semi-detached lots came about, I would say, December of 2022. And then we had further meetings with them. And recently we got to know that they want more lots for their new program that they have, that they want to bring affordable rental units. So we said, by all means, because we have the same vision from Delbrook perspective. We have exactly same vision. So why? Well, our vision is profit-based. And nobody can argue that, because as a developer, we got to make profit to be able to run these shows. But now for Habitat for Humanity, the reason that we started the conversation with them, that we saw that they have the same vision as what we have. So why not doing that? And again, nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows what tomorrow's market is going to look like. But we are hopeful. We are insisting in developing all this, bring it all to the permit stage, ready to go and ready to get it to market. I can tell you, if you're following us on our Port McNichol project, we haven't released a single price for any of those units yet. The reason being is we like to honor what we promote. So we say we are doing a detailed analysis on our marketing side now to come up with the proper budget. And then that once we got our budget, everything to the, final numbers, then we know how much we can go and provide this to market. So, and which is hopefully happening in the springtime. We are eager. We invested a lot in this area, and one thing that we appreciate and we love to work with your staff here and also in TAY is the friendly communication that we have. We believe that we can all find a resolution and to solve the problems. as Jamie mentioned, August 2023, we received supports from you guys that for OPA 7 that this land's got to be part of the OPA 7, which is out of our is no fault of ours that we're still waiting. So we thought that this approach to bring the deputation to you guys and ask for this MZO, which still we have to go through the whole process for approval. We have to still go and get the draft plan approval. We got to still do all type of studies that we got to do. There is no shortcuts here. It's just saving that time instead of waiting. Who knows? Maybe it takes another 2 years before we hear back from the OPA 7. So this project is just going to get behind. So thank you.
Thanks, and sorry, I know that I asked you two big questions, but the actual development of the Habitat for Humanity, the built
Oh.
form, is that going to be something that you're going to have some say into? So again, the neighborhood doesn't feel disjointed?
So what we have agreed, now we are bringing on the plan that we shared with you guys, there is a lump sum of land that we are donating to Habitat for Humanity. But when we get to the planning process, they're going to share all their detail because they are doing the same kind of project in some other towns. So our deal with them is they're going to provide their plans to us, and we're going to put it with our planners and our architect team. We're going to put them together on our piece, but that piece is going to be, and the city will have a say on it. Like, they have a say in terms of when it gets ready, when the land is ready for construction. We have promised Habitat for Humanity that we will manage the construction at cost for them. So we will donate the land to them. We will manage the site because economically it makes sense to do it that way. But they will have to provide for the building materials and whatsoever the cost going to be.
Thanks.
I hope
And
that-
I've said
that
this online, that this public partnership, I mean, to me, this is inspirational, and it should really set the bar for other municipalities, because the alternative is really Habitat coming to municipalities and asking for land donations from our banks. As it turns out, we tried to do that, but we really don't have a lot. And what we did have was a brownfield and needed far too much remediation. So this is a greenfield site, and to have it, master planned as part of the subdivision from the get-go, where it doesn't feel like a transplant or an afterthought. Like, this is, I don't think it gets any better than that. And it's not even municipality that's donating it, it's the benevolence, and you're factoring that into your profit margin and basically donating this to them. So I'm really stoked about this. I'm excited to hear back from staff. Hopefully we approve this with the rationale for the MZO that's defendable, because, people are always concerned that this is hopping a process, and are we hopping it for bad reasons to keep them out of the loop and not have meetings or anything with them? Or are we hopping for good reasons? And staff will, they'll provide the justification whether it makes sense or not. And also reassure the community where mandatory Planning Act public meetings and input still play in an MZO application, or they don't. And what that means to a developer like yourself, who's already run your own community input meetings that you weren't even obliged to do under the Planning Act, whether you'd still do those, even if not forced to do that under the Planning Act. So I'm excited to see this thing move forward for a whole bunch of reasons. And I personally believe, for what that's worth for people following along, that your company has the integrity to follow through on what it's saying, and you're not sending any of the traditional signals of land bankers or people that have no interest in moving forward on development. We can look at a couple of big developments in our town now that are stuck in full park, and not because there's any conflict with the town. They're doing nothing with them. So the fact that you've been actively investing in this property and moving forward, and now you're at this impasse where you're either stuck in line on OPA 7 for whenever that, plugged pipe gets cleared, or you bump past it using the MZO process. I'm glad you're here asking for it, and I really look forward to our planners, who really have no skin in the game on this. They can make an objective, unbiased recommendation to council, and we can move forward.
And if I may, I just want to add another point to our comments. We always at Delbrook, we believe in creating jobs. Creating jobs helps the communities. Right now, as we speak, there is a company, True North Manufacturing, that they're establishing their plant here right in Midland, that they're going to do the prefab, panelize the houses. We already have had meetings in our office in Richmond Hill with them. They already stopped by. We're in constant communication. They're reviewing our plans as we speak now on the school project. So just imagine, like, if you have a developer who is out there within within Tay, town and Midland, and bringing all these jobs, and our goal is to bring and try to use the local trades for constructing these houses. And we are in the bidding process right now for the school project. And we hope we can just continue, because we understand once we have the market, it's just going to be a cycle, Mayor. We just have to now, we got to shift that. The same trades love to move on to the next job site. They don't want to just stock and finish one job. So this hopefully, we hope that this brings a good cycle for everybody in this town. Thank you.
Counselor McDonald.
Thank you. And thank you for your presentation. You educated me a lot about the ministry's zoning order and the official plan. I was a little curious. So we mentioned that the supply and demand analysis, I suspect that that's already been completed and that you know that the need is here. My question is, how, I guess I'm asking for a crystal ball, how confident are you that this will be accepted? And if it isn't, what's the next move? Because I'm looking forward to seeing developed what you're proposing.
Your worship, you're asking me to speculate, but I can give an educated, not, I guess, more than a guess, but I'll speculate a little bit based on what I know about the process. So the MZO process was refined in the last, like there were some changes made to the legislation, and they call it enhanced MZO process now. That was to deal with in response to some of the greenbelt issues that your worship mentioned previously. And through this enhanced MZO process, it requires, effectively requires support from municipal council to support your application, which is why we're here deputating, and then a future staff report to come. So the idea is, if you have a willing municipality and you have a willing developer, either be it residential or employment user, come to bring jobs to your community, that everybody sees there's a clear public interest in the proposal. And I tend to say, demonstrated that there's no environmental impact associated with it, then I think and there's a clear reason why an MZO is necessary. And I've told you the reason why already it's necessary here to advance development and advance housing quickly. I think there's a good prospect of success, but who knows with a new election coming and those sorts of things. But based on the current climate, that's what I can advise. If this had a bunch of environmental issues and those sorts of things, then I would say no, but that's not the case here.
I appreciate your positive outlook.
Counselor Major.
So last year I went to Amo and there was a guy from Frontenac County there. And he did a presentation like you did. Your presentation was really good. And they've been tied up for like 8, 9, 10 months over bureaucracy at the province. So they get the province up to answer his question. And it was 5 minutes of absolutely, they said nothing to the guy. And there he is, like waiting to build affordable housing in Frontenac County. And I get where you're coming from with the red tape and bureaucracy, but it was amazing that the one that answered his question was 7 minutes of hot air and saying nothing. So I see where it could be frustrating for you guys, where you try to get things going and then you just get bogged down. So just do your best to get it done.
The only thing I can say through your worship, I could say, is that what's being proposed does align with, I think, the town council's mandate, but also the province's mandate to build more homes faster. And they've got those targets they're trying to meet. So, and I think is clearly in the public interest based on the location. So I would hope, because of those factors and because we've checked the boxes of the enhanced MZO and what the specific requirements are to be eligible for them, I think there's a prospect that it moves forward. Time will tell, but.
Mayor Gordon.
Thanks. More of just a comment. For what it's worth, in the few times that I've had meetings with Minister Calandra and also the Premier, sometimes it was around housing, sometimes it was for other issues. A bit of FaceTime with them, and I'm talking hypothetically at a high level, quite excitedly about the prospects for development in Midland and how we don't even have a housing number assigned to us as a small lower tier municipality, but that if we did, we'd be exceeding it with just the development plans alone that Delbrook has put in our lap, notwithstanding seasons if it ever starts going again, and what our friends are also doing it on Bayport, the Caitlin Group. There's a lot of housing activity that is scheduled for growth in Midland. So one of the things I'd asked him about while I had him was, what is his opinion on MZO? Figuring he might recoil, automatically after all the drama with the green belt and Mr. Clark resigning and whatnot. So we had a really good, probably 10-minute conversation over a glass of wine, talking about the realities of when an MZO makes sense as a submission for municipality and when it wouldn't. And of course, I wasn't really at liberty to talk about these hypotheticals because none of them happened yet, but I was just using generalities, and I was just describing the kind of projects that I believe were in the wind coming down the pipe. And it was a development like this in our area that was fully serviced now and ready to go, that the province is looking to fast track. We're not trying to take parkland or do anything silly like that would embarrass either ourselves or the minister. So I got really good feedback on that, and I've been trying to share that we're really on the right trajectory. And depending what happens provincially, whether we get new ministers or whatnot, we've been engaged with our candidate Dunlop right now, but Minister Dunlop, through both of her portfolios, she's been a huge proponent in getting housing approved in this riding. So I haven't felt any headwinds whatsoever from the province. I haven't felt or heard any signals that we would have any issues. If every application was an MZO, I think eyebrows would be raised. But when they're submitted appropriately and for good rationale and reason, my expectation is, and all the signals that I've gotten, is that they would be approved at the provincial level, which should help get things moving here. And it's neat to see, by comparison, another project that Delbrook is working on, the Little Lake project, which is another really nice mixed community that has rentals, doesn't need an MZO to proceed. So it isn't a case of, and this is another question I was getting from the public, this isn't a question of a developer coming in, making wild promises, and every project needs to be the exception. The standard traditional run-of-the-mill development pathway is being used for the Little Lake project along Yonge Street. And this one has, because of exigent circumstances and the fact that it's quasi-approved through us through OPA 7, but now the pipe is plugged through no fault of anyone's. This is the reason why this one's coming forward. So I've had lots of good conversations about MZO and its application at different levels of government and with the public. And so I was waiting for this to come to council, and I'm glad it did. And I'm glad you're able to answer questions to at least satisfy the initial intrigue from council until we get our staff recommendation back and can make a decision. The question would be on timing. When, I know we got a lot of stuff going on in our planning growth department, when would we expect to see a report back from you, if this is moved and passed tonight?
Through Madam Chair. Staff would probably look to earliest come back is the March meeting with a review and a recommendation to council. That would probably be realistically the earliest that we can provide a report back for council to consider this request.
Any other further questions or comments from council? Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Robinson and Maddie, for coming in. And I want to thank you for working with Habitat for Humanity, filling the need for, residential development in our neighborhood. And, I want to thank staff for working with Maddie and Delbrook, to speed up the process for this development. And, Maddie, I mean, when you gave that extensive, detailed information on how this whole process works, I don't know if Mayor Gordon channels through you or you channel through him for giving extensive, detailed information on how things operate when it comes to any topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Robinson. Council thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think all our questions have been answered for now. I appreciate you coming tonight and your presentation.
Thank
I have a motion on the floor. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Emeritus. Councillor Major. That the PowerPoint presentation provided by MHBC on behalf of the Delbrook Group regarding the request for the minister's zoning order for the property located at 565 Bomb Beach Road be received for information, and that staff be directed to provide a report to council on the planning process with respect to the minister's zoning order request from Delbrook Group for the property located at 565 Bomb Beach Road. All in favor? That's carried, unanimous. Okay, moving forward, number 16, committee local board delegation or memo. There are none. 17, reports and other items withdrawn from the consent agenda for council's consideration, includes presentations by consultants regarding a report under consideration. 17.1, CSR-2025-15, municipalities of the county of Simcoe insurance pool. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mayor Gordon and Councillor McDonald.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You have the report before you with respect to the insurance pool that is an initiative that was brought by the county and included the municipality, various municipalities within the county of Simcoe, as well as the city of Aurelia. And it's before your it's before you for review for the option or an option to our traditional insurance program. I have here tonight the consultant, Mr. Ryan Durrell. He is from Axima. He is integral into all the implementation of this program. He's here to answer questions or provide any information that any of you may have. So if you have questions or would like to direct comments to him, I'll ask him to the podium. This is Ryan Durrell from Axima. He is the consultant who's been retained by the county to put this program together for the various municipalities who may wish to become members.
Worship Council, thanks for having me. I did not get the "we're wearing blue suits" memo from the other guys, so.
Mayor Gordon.
Thanks. We'll kick things off. Of course, I have the, the foreknowledge because I got to see all this in its infancy stages at the county and, gladly endorsed it. It's a novel approach. It's one that kind of has the traditional insurance industry kind of back on its back heel because, here we are proposing to basically self-insure and it reaps some savings as a result. Any new venture like this, there's always risk. And the report covers it nicely, and council may have some questions. But I think the only big risk that's the elephant in the room that I know the answer to, but I still want to ask this because I think it's important the public see it. We're not only urged to do this because not only the county, our big brother, our big sister, is telling us that it's really a good idea. It's still in our hands to choose to join or not. But I mean, it's a nudge, wink, wink. Like, really, you don't want to do this? Just because everyone else is doing it is never a good reason for us to do it. That shouldn't be our default. But in this case, if there is a staggeringly huge claim that comes against this pool by one municipality, whether it's deserved or not, we know the litigious nature and the perception, which is largely reality of the bottomless pocket of the municipality and joint and several claims and things. Who insures this insurance policy if there's a claim made against us that potentially could evacuate the funds that we all rely on because of one municipality's mishap, whether they earned it or not?
Great question. So just to kick things off, we're not suggesting through the pool structure that we go without any insurance at all. What we're doing is we're looking at structuring things so we self-insure a larger deductible, but we do so as a group to stabilize the cost of that. So if there was a very large loss, say for example, $15 million, first of all, each municipality will continue to have its own deductible like it does today in order to make sure that municipalities stay accountable to manage their own risk and have some stake in the claims. So that same deductible structure will exist for the individual municipality. Then the pool will take the difference between 500,000 and whatever that amount is. And above that, there will still be excess insurance purchased from whichever of the markets ends up coming forward and being the successful proponent to be that insurer for the pool. So in a $15 million case claims situation, municipal deductible, largely similar to what's being done today, will be borne by the municipality individually. Then the pool will take the difference between 500,000 and that deductible, and then the insurers will continue to carry that $14.5 million. So it's being structured very thoughtfully to make sure we're retaining the large volume of losses that are predictable and would not destabilize the group, while continuing to use the insurance marketplace for what it's really great at, which is taking care of the very large uncertain claims. So we're going to continue to have an insurer involved, and will likely be one of the regular stakeholders who ends up insuring municipalities in Ontario.
Perfect. I think that's a good point to make because, this is it's a new model. The second one is, Midland's blessed in that we have a Julie, on staff who has been great at managing our claims. And a lot of small urban municipalities and small rurals don't have Julies, and they rely entirely on, external legal to help them manage those things. So not that we don't rely on external legal, but we have our first point of contact in-house. So we've been successful in renegotiating pretty aggressive discounts to our insurance, because I think we carry a good rating in town. We're certainly not a risky place to insure in the grand scheme of things. So those savings we've been incurring by having Julie, are those anticipated to continue to flow to the municipality? Are we able to help manage claims in-house and then incur some savings by not having to spend the claims management that's part of the pool?
Absolutely. By virtue of having Julie, you're able to defray some of the costs of adjusting claims, and therefore the claims that are associated with Midland will all be more cost effective than if you didn't have a Julie. And that will continue to flow through in the way the levies, which are the replacement for insurance premiums under a pool structure, will continue to be calculated. So those savings will continue to flow to Midland as a result of Julie's work.
Perfect. Those are really the only two things I wanted to pull out and make sure that I was accurate on moving ahead. I'll let council ask other questions.
Councillor Meredith.
Sure, I don't really have a question. It seems fairly clear to me that this is the way to go. See the savings in the long term, with the exception of year one. So I'm all board for this, but it sounds great. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Perhaps it's in the, thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Prost. Thank you for your information and presentation. What comes to mind is we went with the OPP to save money, and that didn't work too well. Is this, are we married to this, or is it a year by year, 5-year contract? And you look at your thing and we're saving the projected increase annually. We're not saving, there's no reduction. I can vouch that probably it will be increased because I just got my auto insurance bill. But if you could clarify those few points for me.
Those are great questions. Let me start off with first comment about whether or not this will actually generate savings. I do want to address the point that this isn't actually as novel as it might seem. There are two existing insurance pools in Ontario. The first being the Waterloo Municipalities Insurance Pool, created in 1998, and the second being the Durham Region Municipalities Insurance Pool, created in 2000. They were created by predecessors of mine through it in our previous life under a company called Dion Durrell and Associates. And they've been operating for 25 plus years. Even through the soft insurance market, they continue to deliver savings to the municipalities, and neither of them have gone anywhere over that course of time. And in fact, the Waterloo Region risk manager came and presented at County Council and did speak to the fact that they're quite protective of how good it is and not super keen to let other municipalities come in lest they destabilize the good thing they've got going. So there's a good long track record of these insurance pools continuing to deliver savings over a long protracted period of time. So if that hopefully allays some of your fears about whether or not this works, it does work. You might be asking why did it take 25 years to create a new one? Largely that's because when insurance premiums over a very long period of time go down and down and down, nobody's super keen to roll the dice and start something new. But when insurance premiums go up by 60, 70% over a 5-year period, everybody takes notice and starts looking at, and that's exactly how those original pools got started, was during a hard insurance market. So it's at those times when they get created, but they continue to create value by operating on a not-for-profit basis for the municipalities and provide additional services that are customized for them. So it really will be a Simcoe solution for the Simcoe municipalities. Hopefully that helps with that, but I can't speak to the OPP comment.
Thank you.
To your second point, which I'm trying to remind myself what it was, you had a second question. Oh, the 5 years. So in the agreement, it does have a 5-year commitment for the initial period. Does also lay out the entry and exit conditions. So there's an exit opportunity at 5 years should you wish to exit. So you're not stuck in it past the 5 years. Why the 5 years? And it's important that it is 5 years because we need that for the stability. We also need it to be able to negotiate, to give us the clout to negotiate with the excess insurers and get the favorable terms that we want to achieve. And then lastly, we also want enough time for the savings as being projected to flow out to the municipalities so you get an opportunity after the surplus has been built to see the benefits that you've created by doing the investment at the outset. Even though you're getting a 10% reduction, it's actually a deferral of savings because it was up to 19.2% being proposed by the actuaries. Last piece, and I do want to address this because it's important that we point out that we're not projecting that insurance premiums stay static. In all of our projections, we're assuming that inflation is going to continue to occur, and that is going to impact insurance premiums in two different ways. One, because Midland is growing, just as we just heard, maybe 450 new units coming online within 3 or 5 years. So we know that the municipalities are growing and therefore the exposures are growing. So that's going to impact insurance premiums over time as they're going to grow to reflect that additional risk. And the other piece is lawyers aren't getting any cheaper to defend claims. Lumber isn't getting any cheaper to rebuild buildings. So we've embedded some inflationary factors into that. And really that's the core cost structure of insurance policies, is paying for the claims. So we're going to assume that those levies and commensurately the insurance premiums, if you didn't join the pool, would continue to go up similarly because they should track along with inflation.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So yeah, thank you for coming in. I see the savings, 2 million over 5 years, which is 1.5% of our tax levy per year. But also, I mean, for our business, I know we've been part of a pool for a group of hotels and we've seen the savings. My only question is if there's a township that is kind of having too many claims, is there a possibility to remove them, or how does that work? I just wanted, because I know with our insurance company, if there's an abusive hotel, it gets removed from the pool because then it's costing the other pool players more money because they're not, being responsible with their claims. So that was my question. Thank you.
That's a great question. So, um, firstly, that's part of why the deductibles continuing to be at the municipality levels are important. So if a municipality had a whole bunch of new claims, they would have higher costs internally as well, not just at the pool. We would be watching for those trends to emerge, and we would respond to those by changing levies if need be. That said, the actuaries did look at a 10-year time horizon within the data, and really didn't see any significant outliers in terms of how the municipalities had their claims come out. So there were differences between them, and the levies have been adjusted. And the advisory board that gets created through this pool agreement, the advisory board is made up of the 18 municipalities, one representative from each municipality, one vote for each municipality, regardless of size. They're going to be the ones that approve the levies annually with the assistance and the input of an actuary. So if we see those kinds of situations happen, first we might look and see, is that a permanent change? Was there a risk change or a way things are being handled? Try to address it directly. And if it can't be addressed, or it is a permanent change simply because they've undertaken a new riskier activity, then the levy would have to change. So there is a mechanism in place to change the cost to the municipalities if you see a change in their claims base. But there's a number of measures in there, very similar to regular insurance, to make sure that they're dissuaded from doing that, including maintaining a deductible.
Julie?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Patel, I do want to clarify one quick thing for you. You're looking at the potential savings that are set out on page 3 of the report, which includes savings on the levy as well as an inclusion of an equity in the pool. And the equity is about $918,000 as projected by the actuary. That equity is maintained by the pool. It's not an actual savings to the town, as it were, and that's equity would be used for paying out the claims as they occur. So to say that there's a $2 million potential savings to the town isn't really correct. And I wanted to direct you to page 4. We've done a chart about what the actual savings would be. It's about halfway down. And then you also have to look at the fact that year 1, we're going to have a cancellation fee, which will reduce that as well. But there will still be a savings to the town budget. I think it's set out year 1, and for the 2025 tax year, there won't be any change to what's in the budget.
If I might add to that, is that okay? Can I add to that? I don't know what the process is. Am I allowed to?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Just add that it's true that there's going to be a deferred savings or a surplus that gets built up that will be used to benefit the municipalities. To the previous councillor's point, if you decide to leave, then that equity does get returned to the municipality as the claims close out. So it is the property of Midland. It's just being held at the pool for the benefit of stabilizing claims over time. The other thing I'd like to point out is that that surplus can also be leveraged to create new programs and new risk management opportunities. Case in point, and again, this is pointing to the existing Waterloo pool, who leveraged their surplus to create a self-insured cyber insurance program to manage cyber events at a time when insurance was nearly unavailable for most of the municipalities. So there's opportunities to leverage that equity, even though it doesn't sit directly within Midland, to leverage it to benefit Midland and the town's operations.
Councillor Ball?
Thank you. You just responded to Councillor Patel saying that if there is a municipality that has, continuous claims, that you would be adjusting the levy, and that the levy is something that's discussed each year. So I guess I'm wondering if there's been a discussion of how many claims equals too many. If the levy, like if you have a bunch of municipalities voting to change the levies each year, because that's something that we should be concerned about, that if we have more claims, we might be the subject of that rise. And how, I guess, who's making those rules up? Because it doesn't sound like that's put in place yet.
This is a great question. Firstly, let me point out that the threshold for approving the levy has a very high threshold. I believe it's 80% of the advisory board needs to approve the levy each year. So you can't have sort of a rogue situation where people pick on a particular municipality. And if there was a marked amount of claims, not single, like single claims are expected, very large claims are expected. That's why we buy the excess insurance. But if there was a marked improvement, a doubling of claims frequency, the first step would be to look at why that's happening and whether or not it's situational and can be resolved. The second thing that comes about is the reality is that would be no different in the regular insurance marketplace. If you had double the claims in a year, you better believe that your broker is going to come to you and say, hey, the insurers want an increase in your premium. So it's really not changing the way in which it goes, except now that your team will have access to considerably increased transparency as to how the levies are set, and you'll be working with peers to set those levies fairly. And just to give a for instance on how the advisory board in Waterloo has done it, they've capped out increases annually to make sure that municipalities are not destabilized by large increases when they've been necessary because of claims, increased claims. And sometimes that has to do with increased claims coming from icy conditions over a specific winter, which created more slips and falls, and that necessitated a minor increase in levies, the exact same thing that would have been levied upon them by an insurer had they been the insured. So that will be laid out, and you will have a voice at the table, the Zika to everybody else, as you figure out as a group how you want to manage those changes.
Thank you. And yes, I would expect there to be a rise in premium, obviously, but I just wanted to hear that there's a more concrete plan and that there's a actual 80%. That's a little more comforting than the first response. So I appreciate you expanding
No
on
problem. Happy to help. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Thank you very much for answering all our questions. I do have a motion on the floor, moved by Mayor Gordon, seconded by Councillor McDonald. The staff report CSR 2025-15 municipalities in the County of Simcoe Insurance Pool dated February 5th, 2025 be received, and that the town of Midland become a founding subscriber to the municipalities of the County of Simcoe Insurance Pool, and that the CFO or designate be authorized to represent the town of Midland on the municipalities of the County of Simcoe Insurance Pool Advisory Board, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all necessary documents for the town to join the municipal insurance pool, including the form of subscription included in the subscribers agreement substantially in the form attached hereto as attachment C to CSR 2025-15. That's a long one. No commas. So we've had discussion. I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? Carried unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to 17.2. Could I have a mover and a seconder? 17. I'll read the motion first. The staff report CSR 2025-19 update to parking bylaw dated February 5th, 2025 be received, and that the implementing bylaw being bylaw 2025-7 as shown in attachment 1 be passed and enacted. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Counselor Ball and Counselor East. Does anybody have any questions? Counselor McDonald.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I requested this report be pulled so that we'd have the opportunity for staff to highlight some of the specific changes on the bylaw and how it's being improved. Because heaven forbid we pass the opportunity to not talk about parking.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, a summary of the notable changes are found on page 2 of the report. I do have the page numbers for the bylaw for each one aside from number 4, because number 4 is simply just a straight deletion from the bylaw. But for number 1, it's page 7 of the bylaw, and it's a simple change in the I guess the current parking bylaw. We allow up to 12 hours for a vehicle to be parked on the street. We've recommended that be reduced to 6. I find in my time, a 12-hour time frame quickly turns into a couple days, depending on when staff get the complaint, when we can get there and stem tires, because the 12-hour clock doesn't necessarily start until we stem the tire. So that's just been reduced to 6. Realistically, it'll probably be anywhere between 12 hours to 1 day before a ticket would be issued to that type of vehicle. Number 2 is found on page 13 of the bylaw. This was one of the more notable issues that were found. And this was as a result of the paid parking downtown. When that was ceased, it was directed by council that that general area downtown be a 2-hour limit only. Signs were installed. However, the problem being is the bylaw was never updated in the past to reflect that. So there was nothing in our current bylaw that spoke to 2-hour limits downtown. Now with Schedule B and the relevant sections, that is now able to be enforced downtown. Number 3 is found, that change is found on page 9 of the bylaw. And that more or less is relatively a deletion, if you will. In the current parking bylaw, there is a bunch of different provisions in regards to how many accessible parking spaces need to be on certain properties, what size they need to be. That is now all dealt with through different provincial acts. The AODA is where you find that, and as well as municipal zoning bylaws. So all of that stuff has been removed from the bylaw, and it simply will not tie accessible parking spaces to a schedule as it is in the current bylaw. And it's just simply straight that if there's an accessible spot in the municipality, whether it's public or private property, there's authority now for us to ticket. We don't need to have those properties listed into a schedule in order for us to go on and ticket people for misusing accessible parking spaces. As I said, number 4 is just a simple deletion. There was a couple schedules in the bylaw that spoke to fees. Those have now all been transferred to the fees and charges bylaw. That was done quite a number of years ago. So there was a bit of a duplicity in there. So I just deleted those just to make it for one bylaw rather than 2. And the last 2, Pete Peterson boat launch, that's been changed. It's found on page 10 of the bylaw, as well as the last page, Schedule F, which you'll see is the map for the Pete Peterson boat launch. Section 18 now makes it quite clear where you can and can't park with a trailer, without a trailer, and when, and the area in which you need to pay. So that makes it a little bit more clear. The current bylaw doesn't really delve into that all that much. So with these changes, that makes it a little bit easier for us to enforce. And if there are tickets that are taken to court, it'll be a much easier for us to be able to defend those. And the last change, which will more or less come in the future, I've added in the offenses penalty section, the ability to issue administrative monetary penalties. So when we do get around to creating that bylaw for this town, this will already be updated to reflect that, so we don't need to go back to the parking bylaw and do another amendment to add that ability. It's more or less just been done for future considerations for once we get into AMPS. Aside from that, I don't believe there's anything of note that I've changed aside from a bunch of deletions with some duplicity in no parking schedules. Aside from that, so if there are any further questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
I would just like to thank you, Mr. Kennedy, for those highlights. I did read your explanations, but I was too lazy to go and look and make sure it was in the bylaw. Not too lazy, just knew I could depend on you. And there's a couple of places, especially with the parking for emergency routes, that I noticed weren't there. So I look forward to seeing them repainted and identified again. Thanks for the great report.
Yeah.
I hope the people that are watching appreciates I'm sure, the explanations too. And now everybody has the heads up about the 2-hour parking downtown. And good luck.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Through the chair, just if I may, to Councillor McDonald, just to clarify the emergency routes, you mean fire routes? So I guess I missed that, but that is in the other report that was done for this council meeting and the other bylaw, the fire route bylaw. So that has been removed from parking and is now going to be a standalone bylaw. So that way the fire department now has the ability to go into private properties and establish fire routes. And that bylaw will also be able to give provisions regarding where signs need to be, what type of signs need to be included on private properties in order for us to enforce fire routes. So it does give the fire department quite a lot more ability to enforce that kind of stuff, as well as by law enforcement be able to issue parking tickets for that kind of thing.
Thanks again.
Counselor Major.
So I just looked down at a couple of streets. So are you going to put signs in every street, what side they can park on?
Through the chair, no, the no parking schedules, the streets that are listed within that schedule are only for areas that are going to be no parking. If there's no sign, then you'd be able to park on those sides of the streets. We don't like, if you're talking about the 6-hour limit, that is something that doesn't need to be signed within the municipality. That is a provision that we're able to use without the need of having to put a whole bunch of signs up across the municipality.
I just looked at where I live and they park on both sides of the street and there's no signage up there that they can't. Like it's a 2-block street and everyone, parks either side. And I just happened to look down and it's only one side, which no one ever knew before.
So through the chair, just maybe for clarification, are you saying that there's a street on the schedule, yet there's no signs on the road?
Yeah, the street I live on, it says south side only. Everyone parks on both sides, like forever up there, because I've been up there for 44 years.
Yeah. And
there's no sign to say we can't park on both sides of the street.
Yeah. So through the chair, I'm sure there are probably more than one instance in the bylaw where there's a street or a side of street that has been indicated no parking. May it be historical. There may be a reason for that. And for whatever reason in the past, those signs have since been removed. My task that I have is going to be working with the executive director for engineering and seeing where those issues lie and hopefully being able to rectify those as time permits. But that will be a pretty substantial task, going around every single street, finding whether or not no parking signs are up. And hopefully in the future, we can clean that type of stuff up from the bylaw.
Because I've been there 44 years, so there's absolutely no signs on either side, and everyone parks on either side. Like there's no complaints, there's no nothing. We just park within reason. In the winter, we all park on one side so the plow can go down the street.
Yeah.
But in the summer, but you'd have a field day up there any night, any day. Because there's absolutely, I've been up there 40 years and there's absolutely no signs that we can only park on one side of the street. So I don't know, like that doesn't, unless you're going up there to put signs up in the spring, like then no one's gonna know what you're doing.
Through the chair, maybe to clarify, just under that schedule, in order for us to ticket people, there has to be a sign put on that street. So like I said, it may be in the bylaw, and I'm not aware that there is or isn't signs on some of these streets. This was more or less just a copy and paste of the current bylaw now. Like I said, there could be a task made where an employee goes around the entire town and checks that schedule to make sure whether or not there's signs in that area. But council does have the ability to remove or add streets at their will realistically, and the parking bylaw can be updated to reflect that.
So then they can't give us tickets till you put the signs up, is what you're
Correct.
saying.
Correct.
All right, because when you, I bet you if I went through this whole, all the streets in Midland, I'd be flabbergasted that there's no signs in where people park. Like there's gonna be, how much of the budget are you gonna use to put signs up on 2 block streets?
Through the chair, that's it would be a substantial task, and it's going to take quite a lot of time. I don't know of any municipality, frankly, that their parking bylaw is 100% accurate when it comes to that specific type of schedule. There's always changes made. Unfortunately, there are people in the public that will take out signs as they're put up. There's a bunch of different situations that happen over years that aren't necessarily identified. That is the cause for this confusion.
Follow up?
Can hardly wait till you show up to put the signs up where I live.
Councilor McDonald.
Thank you. Again, just to clarify, the reduction of parking on the street from 12 hours to 6 hours. So that, and you said realistically, then that would mean probably 24 hours. So is this saying that no car will be allowed to be parked overnight, even in the summer months?
Through the chair, this section would be an on-complaint only section. I don't think I would be telling our staff to be going out and stemming tires on every single car that's parked on the road each and every day or night. So this section is intended for people that leave cars on the road for multiple days at a time. Whether or not they're abandoned, they may be broken down. We don't know, but that's the intent of that section, is just so we have something there that allows us to ticket a vehicle and possibly remove it if it's been parked on a road for 3 or 4 days at a time and no one's come and picked it up or moved it. So that's the goal of that section.
Okay. Thank you. See how it works.
Thank you. That answered my question. Councilor Ball.
Thank you. Well, we don't need to bring back paid parking. We're just going to go ticket Howie Street, right? I just wanted to actually thank you for the accessible parking. That actually blew my mind when you said there has to be a schedule with a business attached to it to even be able to ticket. I don't know how that happens, but that's perfect that you updated it. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Mayor Gordon.
Since we're talking about accessible parking, I've tried to get this out on my social channels too, because I see a steady stream of people coming by my office, clutching their ticket in hand, shaking their head, like because a lot of times they've got an expired accessible parking permit. So if I could just shout this out again, perhaps even for the media present, It's in giant, bold, black writing on the face of the handicap permit. It's not hidden or small in the back in tiny font where you need your readers are out. It's like a gigantic black print on the front of it that shows the expiry date. Even if you have been told by your doctor that you're going to need this permit for the rest of your life, like you're missing a leg or something, and of course, remember, not all disabilities are visible. But in this example, there's no expectation you're growing a new leg. So you're going to need it. You're going to need one of these permits the rest of your life. You still have to renew it. It has an expiry date. So for goodness sake, please, please, please check your permit. Make sure that it's renewed. It's simple to do online. And anyway, there's a simple process on the government has a page. Just Google, how to renew my handicap parking permit, because our staff have been out there enforcing this to their credit. And it's merciless. If you are parked, either not displaying your permit or it's half covered or, it's up in your visor, and it's got your garage door openers holding it. Now it's obscuring some of the permit. You'll get a ticket. And it's not because the bylaw guys are, on commission or, anything like that, which isn't the case. But they're out there making sure that those spaces are in use legally by people who have a legitimate permit, and that they're not being abused by folks that don't have a legitimate permit. Even if you do, you're not showing it right. That's part of the rule. It's like getting a pay and display ticket and putting it upside down on your dash so the poor guy can't or gal can't tell whether it's valid. You get the ticket then. So for the many, many folks I've talked to, and almost everybody's happy when they leave. They understand there is a process. Staff are not, just because you come in with your tail of woe, going to reverse the ticket. And they had to take pictures of the evidence, so it's there's not even a he said she said argument anymore. Please, for the love of God, make sure you have a valid permit and display it properly when using the space you were totally entitled to use. But to avoid the ticket and to help out our enforcement officers who are trying to keep those spaces open and available for you when you need them, do everyone a favor and make sure your permit is valid and properly displayed. And then, as much as I love to see you come by the office and have a coffee with you and sit down and talk about the weather, I'd love it if I didn't have to see you because you had a ticket clutched in your hand and you felt it was undeserved. So please, there's my PSA for accessible parking permits. And I'm glad to see that we're tightening things up in the bylaw. My question of you, Rob, is how the entrance to towns, we usually have a thing saying what the default speed is in town. I mean, we don't have to because the default in Ontario is 50. But would it make sense on those placards to include some notification that the maximum amount of time that we can park on a street is 6 hours? I don't think there's anything that talks about that right now. And then, of course, to flip that sign off, or maybe include another one in the wintertime reminding people about the overnight parking. I don't think we put that on those Welcome to Midland signs, and it would be a relatively minor investment. And to Councillor Major's point, we simply can't post these signs all over town. It's prohibitively expensive. But the expectation is that it's posted somewhere and we can refer people to, hey, when you drive into town at any of the major arteries, there's a signboard that tells you the must knows. And if we're making a change like this now, maybe it would be a time to invest in a couple of these signs that would help you and your staff and the public at large. Subject to your thoughts, not telling you to do it, just wondering if it's a good idea.
Yeah, through the chair, actually, that's a fantastic idea. If we don't have signs up in regards to the overnight section for the snow removal stuff, definitely beneficial to have those up at our town boundaries. And we can certainly add another line on that sign that says maximum 6 hours for the entire year. So great suggestion. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Just my reaction to posting 6 hours. If we're not intending on enforcing it, why would we post it? Like, I can see the intent of the 6 hours is for someone not to use the street as a permanent parking lot. But to post it and then not enforce it, that doesn't make sense to me. Let's then change the bylaw to say what we mean, what we hope to enforce.
Through the chair, I think if you want to accurately enforce a section like that, most municipalities have that type of section in their bylaw. And every municipality that I talk to and officers that I talk to deal with that on complaint only. There's a lot of municipalities, a lot of city type of municipalities that are much less than 6 hours. I know down just outside of Toronto, there's some municipalities that are a maximum 2 or 3 hours citywide. You know, that, and again, that is, excuse me, that is only dealt with on complaint. I don't expect our staff, we have 2 part-time, 1 full-time, myself, and when the summer comes around, we have a seasonal officer. I don't believe the staff have the time or resources to be able to go around and stem tires across the entire municipality. We get, unfortunately, too many calls for service that we have to deal with. However, if there is an appetite for additional staff to deal with additional items, you know, that can come at a future time, and that is completely up to council.
Mayor Gordon.
Sure, just in response to that, I mean, our bylaws or any law book, whether it's the criminal code or the Highway Traffic Act, anything, is full of rules that there is not necessarily proactive enforcement on. They're just there because that's the rule. And, you know, if you get caught breaking it, well, so be it. So much like the overnight parking, you know, if we're not actively clearing snow in the town, I personally wouldn't expect us to tow people's cars for parking overnight. However, I would expect us to put a ticket on the window because the law says you can't do that. And, you know, we'll tow you if we're actually plowing your street. And that results in many people coming out with bunny slippers and curlers and, you know, to move their car in the middle of the night. Been there, done that. Had many conversations with residents who desperately didn't want to get towed, and they need to do it before the tow truck arrived. So the reality is that by putting this rule in place, there's no implied expectation that our bylaw enforcement officers are going to be running around enforcing it. It's only that we've put this rule in, there's a rationale behind it, and it's there to be enforced if somebody finds themselves in conflict with it, which we've now learned is complaints based. So that I'm thinking of one particular street in town near where I live, where somebody owns a lot of cars. And, you know, the old rule was if it's licensed and like plated, you could park it on the road. And if it's not, you couldn't. So, you know, plates were acquired and put onto those cars, and there's a game because there's only so much room in the guy's driveway where at least one of those parks on the street, much to his neighbor's disdain, and it just gets rotated around. So while this is not a bylaw attacking this specific person, I think the practice that they engage in, where they've got more cars than they can legitimately fit on their property, where they park on the road for extended periods of time, could find this person the subject of complaints and therefore enforcement. But for the rest of us, you know, if I have lots of people over for a whatever reason at my place and they're all parked on the street, chances are they're not more than 6 hours. And if they are going to be parked more than 6 hours, maybe I got an overnighter and I can't jam them all on my driveway, then, you know, they're going to be parked there longer than 6 hours, and I could find myself subject to enforcement if we had an overnight bylaw guy, which right now I don't think we do. I'd like to see one, but that's a talk for another day. But in reality, we have a lot of these rules on the books, and not just us at the provincial level and federal level, that they're just there for enforcement. But I just don't want to mislead anybody following along that every rule we put in or apply has an implied active enforcement that goes along with it, like proactive enforcement. It's going to be complaints based, reactive, which is really how our bylaw department is built. Other than when they, to your credit, your team's going around nailing people with parking in handicap spots and fire zones soon, you know, that shouldn't be. Like, that's good. That's an absolute expectation. And parking, you know, longer than 2 hours downtown. The whole reason we passed that was to try and keep the requisite churn of folks downtown and no people camping in front of stores, as we've heard from Councillor East, who sees it firsthand. You know, the idea is the parking's available for shoppers and tourists and visitors, and you know, residents' cars, employees' cars, and business owners' cars are meant to be in the back lot, in the back 40. Leave the premium spots open for your visitors and guests. So that kind of proactive enforcement, although very labor intensive, is much appreciated, and quite frankly is a raison d'etre for a municipal bylaw department. So thanks for the housekeeping, and I know you have a lot more to go through. These are the low-hanging fruit ones that, we're kind of egg on our face if we don't have these fixed right away. So good on you for identifying them right away, especially as we get into spring, which according to at least a few groundhog says is coming early. The lobster, not so much, but we're going to need these things as our good weather comes. So thank you. Yeah, there's a lobster out east. I don't have a groundhog out there. I can't remember his name, Larry the Lobster or something. He's just the predictor. Anyway, I digress.
Any further questions or comments from council? Councillor Major.
So the long and short is, as long as no one on your street complains if someone parks overnight, then basically no complaints, we're good to go.
Through the chair, effectively, yes. If we don't get complaints, like I said, we're not gonna have staff going around and stemming every single tire of every single vehicle that's parked on the side of the road. That's not an effective time. That's not an effective use of bylaw enforcement's time.
And I don't have to go door to door to make sure we park on the right side of the street.
No, you're okay.
Okay, do you want me to read the motion again? Yeah. Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Ball, seconded by Councillor East. All in favor? Unanimous, carried. Just don't get caught. Moving on to 18, notices of motion. Does anyone have a notice of motion they'd like to put on the floor tonight? Mayor Gordon.
I just have a notice of motion because thankfully we got a 30-day reprieve from the tariffs and my motion was around that. There isn't expediency on this because I was going to table it and ask for us to set aside the rules of procedures so we could direct staff, assuming it passed. So I've published what it's going to be. Some of you may have read it if you were subscribed to my site, but the spirit of it is related to our risk around potential tariffs that could come now yet in another 30 days. So this is a note. People were expecting me to read it, which is the only reason I'm telling you right now. This preamble isn't usually what happens in this section, but I just want to explain that I'm going to submit it the normal way. So it'll be submitted and it will be on our next meeting's motions for which notice was given, and we can discuss it then. And hopefully the world is still intact at the time of discussion.
Moving on to 19, general announcements. Does anyone have any general announcements beside Mayor Gordon? Mayor Gordon.
Okay, well, you could have done this one too. You got your toque. Where's your toque? Need props. So it's coldest night of the year coming up. And the coldest night of the year is Friday, February 22nd. And there's a toque. This is just a prop. There you go. There's a button on it even. So this is a big deal. This is the fundraiser for the guest house shelter. Shelters all across Canada actually do this, but ours, of course, is our very own guest house shelter, which technically is the county shelter. It just happens to be in the town of Midland. And of course, the need is clearly there and they need money. So there's part of the need. Not only do the homeless folks need a bed and a place to have a shower and wash their clothes and eat and maybe get their ID, get their health needs attended to, try and get out of the shelter system into the next step of which is transitional supportive housing. The first step in this case off the street is the shelter. So, I mean, I know many people would rather we didn't have a shelter. And I think the people that work in the shelter system share that. They'd all love to have no job because there's no need for homeless shelters. We'd all be like loving that reality, but it's not a reality. And of course, the other thing is if we didn't have the shelter in Midland, well, first of all, there'd have to be stats to justify why it wasn't needed in Midland. And unfortunately, those stats say otherwise. But if we didn't have it here, there would just be unsheltered people all over the place in Midland. Even though we don't have as many beds as we do unsheltered, it would be way worse. So the bottom line is the shelter is funded from the province through the county. Extra money was released from the province, thank goodness. some of the lobbying we did around that, request of the province, the big city mayors, and Midland got our name into that pile, asking the province for more supports. That paid off. Probably doesn't hurt that there's an election going on now either, but more money was funneled into the shelter system and supportive housing. But it doesn't pay the full bill to run the shelter. So coldest night of the year is the once a year fundraiser. This is like the Terry Fox run of the shelter system. And without the funds raised from coldest night of the year, there's a huge deficit that just couldn't be filled otherwise. So of course, the shelter is always looking for volunteers to help the kitchen and with the patients or the people whom they serve. But more desperately, they need cash, cold hard cash, because that cash pays the bills. So you can fundraise by forming your own group. You can join an existing group. I happen to have one. Just Google me and you'll find the Town of Midland group that I set up. You can donate to my group. You can donate to me. You can donate to a friend, or you can just smash the donate button and donate. I know everyone's hands out. Times are tough. There's lots of uncertainty in the world, especially financially. But the money that goes into the shelter through coldest night of the year is spent exclusively on shelter operations, food, keeping the heat on, the programming. It's absolutely mission critical for the shelter. So the long and short of it is any, axe to grind you have with the fact that there is a need for shelters, which I share. It's terrible that there is. Or the fact that we have one, why can't it be somewhere else? Well, because it's here, because that's where the need is. The only other next thing you could do to remedy this situation is to help fund them in any way you can. Every dollar counts, and I would encourage you to please consider in your charitable donation spirit, smash the donate button on the Coldest Night website and send some funds and some love to our shelter system, please. I will be there walking. I'm going to do the big walk. I usually get shanghaied into the curling club to warm up halfway through. Probably end up there again this year, but I will finish the walk as I always do and raise money for a good cause. So please consider the coldest night of the year. That's my PSA for our local shelter.
Thank you, Mayor Gordon. Am I correct that it is February 22nd? Can you confirm the time?
It's 5 o'clock. I think I should know exactly right now because I'm blabbing about it, but just double check online. I think we muster outside the shelter by the church, United Church, and there's like usually food and tea and hot chocolate, and there's a little workout, a little exercise before we get going to limber up so no one pulls a leg muscle or anything. And there are toques. It's a good time for a worthy cause. And sorry, while I'm on it, I did actually have two. So unless anyone else does want to jump in. So
ahead.
today we proudly hoisted where's my brain? I was there. It was cold out. It's Black History Month, and I was like so frozen, my mouth barely was working. Anyway, we proudly hoisted the flag today. You'll see it flying for the month out front. There's a declaration that goes along with that, which I won't read to you right now. Suffice to say that every year we celebrate Black History Month, and maybe I'll just share that it's disturbing, to say the least, that south of the border with some of the Sharpie, rendered decrees from the ruler south of the border, that is now like a prohibited thing, along with Martin Luther King Day and Juneteenth, which isn't something most Canadians really know about. It's more south of the border, but that these things are being expunged, and along with things, like DEI, which we talked about at budget time. I'm not going to repeat my stump on that one, but the bottom line is the town of Midland proudly hosts many, many people from many different ethnic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, racial backgrounds. That fabric, that mosaic is what makes us such an amazing community. And Black History Month is an opportunity to acknowledge the role specifically that Simcoe County played in the Underground Railroad, the church in Oro. There's all kinds of neat history to look into. And that we acknowledge that even though we don't have, a large Black population in our community, we have a Black population in our community though. And being inclusive as we are as a municipality, celebrating Black History Month is important. And we had a good turnout despite the frigid weather. And we even had a gust of wind after we raised the flag, which is unusual because usually, for whatever reason, flag raising days, there's no wind out front. We all try to blow, but it just doesn't have any effect. But today we did have a gust of wind. There's a nice picture on as a press release from the town of Midland website. If you want to know more about Black History Month, and if you're one of the folks that's asking yourself, what the hell is there a Black History Month for? Why isn't there a White History Month? That's not actually a terrible question to ask, but it's a good question, and you can easily Google the answer. And I'll leave that to you because I don't want to turn this into an education session. But suffice to say, the flag is up. We're flying it for the month, and if you want to know more about it, it's really easy to do online. Just search Black History Month.
Counselor Ball.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm the coldest night of the year, the check-in is at 4 and 4:45 is the opening remarks. So, but I also wanted to point out, speaking of all these, I guess, the US and getting rid of everything, that February 26th is Anti-Bullying Day. So wear your pink shirt for Anti-Bullying Day.
Any further announcements? Okay, then we're on to 20. Motion to close committee of the whole and to resume formal council session, moved by Councillor Patel, seconded by Councillor Major, that the committee of the whole rise and report. All in favor? Carried, unanimous. Okay, back to Mayor Gordon.
Thank you. Motion moved here by Councillor Major, seconded by Councillor Patel, that the recommendations of the council committee of whole for the meeting of February 5th, 2025 be adopted as resolutions of council. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All righty, now we get to motions for which notice was given. 22.1, we have a motion here moved by Councillor McDonald, needs a seconder. Sorry, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. I don't know. Before we get a seconder, I'm proposing to withdraw this motion at this time. And I possible document in the minutes that it is being withdrawn. Because I'm going to, Councillor Ball and I are going to work on a motion, a better prepared motion that will be more specific to staff, that with some goals and measurable outcomes. And I'd like to add that various community organizations are already doing a lot to address poverty. We should aim to build on this existing work, addressing the gaps and identifying opportunities for improvement. Midland needs a poverty reduction action plan, and I hope that we bring one forward. So I'll do more homework, and I don't know whether I have to give a notice for, my notice is another notice of motion will come forward soon.
Okay, so we almost put it on the floor, but we didn't get a seconder, didn't really read it in, so we'll say it's not on the floor. Is that fine with you, Madam Clerk? Okay, so good enough. We'll expect a new motion from you in the near future that's got some more actionable items on it and some deliverables, and lovely. I look forward to it. Deputy Mayor.
I just want to thank you, Councillor McDonald, for doing this, and you'll be bringing it back later. I just do want to mention, and I'm sure you already know, Shelter Now and Hartog House, they've been working with transitional and supportive housing for many, many years. And so that might be one place to look to.
You.
Forgot to enable myself. I said, moving right along here, 22.2, another motion for which notice was given, moved by Councillor Ball, now seconded by Councillor East, that staff provide a report to council outlining the specific costs allocated to the operation of the harbor. Councillor Ball, I think we banged this around at budget time, but did you want to speak to the rationale behind this again?
I do not. I think we all know what it's about. We all, I think we're unanimous in wanting to have a more specific outline of the harbor cost outlined to us in the 2025 report and in the next budget cycle as well. So I don't think we, hopefully, don't need to talk about it anymore. But we can if you want.
Fair enough. I recall the discussion vividly, and I think it was unanimous. We all thought it was a great idea to get a little more zoom in. I know that costs relating to the harbor specifically will definitely, and the consideration of our harbor operations are going to form part of that waterfront master planning process. But nothing precludes us in doing we'll call it right, earlier than that about what the actual costs are directly related to harbor, rather the ancillary costs that are associated with the harbor budget, but are directly related, like the flowers and the washrooms, which are shared by boaters, but also by the public, trying to carve that out. That's an interesting prospect for staff, but I think they probably have the ability to zoom in and bring us something back with some detail on that. Because I think it ties in nicely to the waterfront master plan and what we'd like to see down there, and whether or not we continue to operate a harbor or we farm it out or something as a waterfront community. There's largely an expectation that there's some kind of harbor. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you. From my recollection, the budget debate, we were trying to specifically see the community and culture part of it, as opposed to having the harbor expense and income there. So this is the goal, that this report will specify the cost of running the harbor, the income, more or less a profit and loss statement, just dealing with the harbor is my expectation.
Lindsay, does that make, the most important thing on this is for us not to pass this and you to come back with something other than what council was expecting. I think we've felt that pain a little bit on other items in the budget. So this would be the time to really extract from us, knowing what data you have in your system, what it is we're wanting you to produce.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Councillor McDonald, I certainly recall that discussion, and you are right. So that was my understanding as well, that it would be more of a separation between culture tourism versus harbor. And recognizing that you're right, with the harbor, there are some costs included in there, such as the public washrooms. They're pretty minor, and we'll do our best to sort of parse those out so that kind of everybody gets what they're wanting. But that was my understanding from the discussion, that it was trying to determine culture, tourism versus harbor.
Yes, we want both. So I guess that might have to be amended, but I was taking that staff wrote this motion based off what we were saying. So I felt like they probably had the idea that they were going to do what was proposed when we were talking about it, but that is, as Mayor Gordon said, we definitely had some hiccups with that. So this is good to hammer it out now. Thank you for that.
So you're comfortable that you have the data that could turn into a report and give us the answers we're looking for?
We will certainly do our best.
That's all anyone can ask. Councillor McDonald.
So thank you. Just a quick question. Is the way the motion presented clear enough, or should we maybe expand on it a bit? It's clear enough? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Emeritus.
Thank you, Mayor Gordon. Through you to staff, probably. Would P. Peterson Park parking violations be included in the revenues for the harbor?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Emeritus. And so that's what I mean by sort of parse those costs out and those revenues out. So in order to understand, so you right now you have a total, right, for culture, tourism, and harbor. I then need to separate that out into basically two. And then from there, I would say Yes, because we do include the Pete Peterson boat launch revenue within the harbor operations. You know, it's likely a footnote, something that says this is how much revenue is from Pete Peterson. Trying to give you the most accurate picture as possible.
And I would understand that, yeah, we're not going to get the full accuracy of it. But I'm not sure in the past if fines was included in revenues for Harborway. Is that, I don't think it was it separated before? So in this one, just I would include in my vision, the way I see it is any type of fines for boat launch and parking trailer fees would be included in this report if you can separate that. I'm not sure if you've done it in the past, if it went under another category or not.
So in general, fines are reported under bylaw, but again, we will do our best with the information we have to give you as the picture that you're looking for.
All right, we're all clear. Staff's clear, council's clear. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. All right, next move by Councillor Meredith, seconded by Councillor Bald, that the following bylaws, bylaw 2024-6, authorizing to enter into an agreement between Corporation and Town of Midland and the Southern Georgian Bay Farmers Markets to provide for an outdoor farmers market for 2025, and bylaw 2024-7, regulate parking within the Town of Midland and to repeal bylaw 2024-34, and bylaw 2024-8, designate the highways and private properties as emergency fire routes on which no parking of motor vehicles shall be allowed, be passed and enacted. All those in favor, council? Opposed? Carried. Next, moved by Councillor Ball, seconded by Deputy Mayor Prost, that the bylaw 2025-9, being a bylaw to adopt the proceedings of regular council meeting with closed session held February 5th, 2025, be passed and enacted. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And finally, moved by Councillor Major, seconded by Councillor Bald, that this regular meeting of council be with closed session adjourn at 8:01 p.m. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We are adjourned.